Hi guys. Um, Thanks for being here. Thank you for bearing with me through that. I spent, I think, a long time sort of hanging out in that area of the of what is a significant world, and um, it's an interesting balance. It's an interesting balance just as a player, because I don't think that you want to immediately, um, as soon as you come up against an obstacle, you don't want to leave. You don't want to sort of, you need to engage with these puzzles like desperately. It's really important, and part of that is sort of like trying to exist in the space, trying to there's I'm thinking like the thing that I'm trying to think about and articulate is that there's two ways that I solve a problem that I'm having trouble really wrapping my head around, especially if the solution is some kind of a creative solution. um, and one of them is to sleep on it, is to sort of like say goodbye to the problem, ignore it, stop thinking about it, literally go to sleep, wake up fresh the next day, rested, like better prepared to tackle a problem, but also like with a fresh perspective, having sort of step back and reset. The other is to go for a walk, and going for a walk is a really important strategy. And for me, going for a walk is not about um, ignoring the problem. It's about continuing to think about the problem, but thinking about the problem in a less directed way. Like kind of the metaphor that I would play with is to kind of like tumble it, right? Like you would tumble a rock in a rock tumbler, or that you would sort of like play with an object, if you weren't certain of its properties, to sort of um, mentally mess around with a problem or a situation, actively, and see what you can find in it and of it, that you didn't know before. And often you need to do both of these things, right? So for me, to a certain extent, like staying in that general area and wandering around and trying to figure out like what is it that I'm not seeing, what is it that I'm not understanding, where have my superstitions led me wrong. That's a part of the process, and a big part of this kind of a game is learning how to draw the line between, I have not tumbled this problem enough. There's still the potential to get something out of that. And then I have spent too long on this. The best thing for me to do is to walk away and sleep on it. Um, so that's, I mean, I think there's always a tension between those two things in this kind of a game. And I think that is complicated by the fact that when I get to a place like that, right, I, where there is not in-game activity for me to do, all I'm doing is literally taking a walk around that space and trying to see, like, if I look at things from different angles, do they look different? Is there something that I missed? Is there something unexpected that I can find in the corners of this space? I get like super bored. Like the reason that I go for a walk when I do this is that tumbling a problem is the kind of thing that if you just sit down and try to do it, like you will get distracted. It puts you in an easily distractible state. And I find that going for a walk is like just enough activity to like keep my senses occupied and allow me to tumble a problem without being distracted. When I'm playing a video game, then I'm playing a video game on a live stream, then I'll start just like telling rambling stories. And then I start telling rambling stories, and I'm not actually like making a lot of progress on tumbling the problem or solving it in any way. I'm not really playing the game anymore. So anyway, it's a curious sort of a thing. It actually, I feel like I hit that a lot in a lot of different puzzle games. This is just, see, and I want to use loaded words. I want to say this is like the most egregious of them, but it's again, it's something that rubs me the wrong way. That's maybe exactly the right term for it. It's not a bad thing. It's just something that sets my teeth on edge. And so, but this game is at an end of the spectrum of those kinds of things. All right, let's take some questions from chat. So, I mean, there are a lot of them. I don't know if I'm going to get to them all. We'll see. I'll do my best. Did you feel time went quickly playing this game? And if so, why? Good puzzles, good design to talk about. If not, why not? It varied. And I'd say specifically, like the beginning, I was in a good flow. Loved those tutorials. Loved those like really pretty explicit tutorials. Loved all of it. Really up to the laser, where the world felt like it was pretty open, but there were guidelines everywhere that gave me, pretty direct cues, not even clues, just cues of interesting places to go, where I would find more stuff to do. And the puzzles were generally arranged in sequences, in like little packages of, hey, here's 6 puzzles in a row, each of which is a progressive complication of the last. I liked all of that. I really enjoyed that. Like, I felt good about it. I mean, obviously at the beginning there was a ton for me to like Guga, that I was just like, I was stunned. I was awed by a lot of the sort of design, the really careful, beautiful, intentional visual and interactive design on display. And so that's something that I like to talk about. And then, I got to a point where I was looking for an apple where there was no apple. And I did that for like 25 minutes. And I can't say that 25 minutes passed quickly, but that's just basic flow theory, really, is that, and flow theory basically says that there's there is an extreme where a player does not feel challenged, feels as though all of the actions in a game are trivial, and becomes bored. And there is an extreme where a player has no sense of self-efficacy, doesn't feel as though they are progressing in a meaningful way, and becomes frustrated. And then there's a sweet spot in between. And if you can hit that sweet spot, then you lose your sense of time. You lose your sense of self. You lose a lot of sense, and become immersed and engaged, and uh, and enjoy the experience. And a lot of games seek that flow state, right? Seek a middle ground between boredom and frustration for the player. Seek a level of challenge that is enough to make the player feel as though they're accomplishing something, but not so much that and ideally without spikes into a place where the player feels as though they are simply defeated. I don't know that that's what this game is about, right? I think this game is about like mentally, emotionally grappling with those spikes, coming to terms with the fact that sometimes this game is too hard, and that's how things are sometimes. Like live with that, and come back to it, and eventually figure it out, or quit, or stop. If you want a flow state, go somewhere else. And that's cool. Like that's kind of transgressive. It's kind of avant-garde. It's in some ways a radical reinterpretation of what of like modern commonly accepted game theory, by which I mean not mathematical game theory, but the theory of games. Interactive theory, maybe we should say. Game theory in math is about logic, and game studies, let's say, theory, ludology. Let's call it ludology because that sounds pretentious. And we're playing The Witness. Ludology is more about the psychology of interaction. So a lot of the psychology of interaction is based around sort of, how do you make the player enjoy the entertainment product. And a lot of The Witness, I think, is about how do you teach the player that their enjoyment from on a moment to moment basis is maybe not the most important thing. All right. You did say that this feels like a dragon before you opened the first puzzle, and in a way you were right. You had to fight the 3 puzzles and get your loot. So isn't it fair that it's increasing the play space? Yeah, again, I mean, it's not... and I think that I may have like covered some of this shortly after. It's not that it's unfair of the game to do anything that it's doing. None of the... let's be really clear. There is nothing unfair about anything that the game has presented so far. It's been actually remarkably upfront, especially compared to other games, which are, let's talk about Antichamber. So it's been a long time since I played Antichamber. That was a while ago. And Antichamber I enjoyed more. But there were definitely moments of that game that got me riled up like this, right? On the whole, I felt like Antichamber reveled in its player's ability to make discoveries. And The Witness, whether this is true or just a reflection of my own bias, I feel like is more adversarial towards the player in sort of its revelation of of possibility within the world. But they're in many ways similar games. They have similar sorts of structure. They have similar sorts of uh, um, so they're they play off a lot of the same kinds of themes, even if I sort of experience them subjectively differently. Um, so, and The Witness is far more fair about its puzzles than Antichamber was. Antichamber had a lot of puzzles where the sort of gimmick of the puzzle was uh, something unexpected. I mean, I feel that there is a difference. I feel that Antichamber would sort of do these things of like for example, like leading you down a pathway, so that when you turned around and went the other way and found that it led to a different place, it could kind of like uh giggle at that. The feeling of the game in that moment was like, look, like you didn't see that coming, did you? But not in a mean-spirited way, in sort of a delighted way. And The Witness is more. It would not do that. I feel like The Witness would not do that. The Witness would not lead you down a dead end to trick you, so that when you turned around and came back, it could pull the rug out from under your feet. And that has nothing to do with like that attitude of delight that I feel like Antichamber took in the game. It's more The Witness takes these kinds of puzzles seriously. It is upfront about the fact that like these puzzles, here's how these puzzles are going to work, and at a certain point they're going to work by introducing elements that you won't know to expect, but I'm going to tell you that that's how they're going to work. Like that's what we're doing now. I feel like that's entirely fair. I feel like it's certainly within the constraints of the thing as a game to do that, to break open its interactions and like make you do things that you haven't that you aren't aware of, that you haven't tried to do before. I don't think it's fun. Like that's the difference. It's absolutely fair. Uh, I just don't think it's fun, or it's not always fun, or it's fun interspersed with these like spikes of frustration. And for me, like that's not. I think that there are some people for whom when they hit those spikes of frustration, it increases their resolve. And when they solve a puzzle that was really hard, that took work or time, that uh, their sort of intrinsic reward for that is heightened by it. And for me, it's not. If I solve a puzzle that is hard, um, I, I don't feel better about it because it was hard. Obviously, that's not a universal. Like I am aware of the experience of taking satisfaction in a job well done, or in the the in doing something that was difficult to do, and yet persisting, or I get that, but just on a pure sort of Skinner box level, I would rather disengage. I would rather not play a game than have it frustrate me. Like my tolerance for that is lower than some people's. It's higher than some people's too. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a huge audience for games, and I am not by any means like at the far end in this respect. But there, I'm sure that there are people watching for whom this is not super relatable. That's just the way that it is. So yeah, it feels like a dragon. Part of the reason that I said that it feels like a dragon is that it felt like it was leading to a moment where it was going to break its own rules. That it was going to sort of dramatically change or categorically change the way that we understood the game to exist. And I feel vindicated in that. I feel like that was a moment where the game broke out of the confines of the little grid and said that up until now, everything that you needed to know to solve a puzzle was inside of the puzzle itself, or the sort of foundational knowledge that you had gotten leading up to that point. And from now on, it is fair game for the things that you need to solve a puzzle to be elsewhere. And that's a dramatic change. Okay, my experience with this phase of this line of puzzles, the no more apple thing, was there isn't an apple. Okay, so what else is different about this tree? And I think that most people would take the same approach, but only in the right mood of truly wanting to solve the puzzle. How responsible is the game for the frustration it causes and potentially puts players on tilt? This is a game. So, I mean, here is what this game is doing for me. From the very first moment, this game is demonstrating the kind of control, the level of control that it has over its own experience. This game is incredibly self-aware. It is very, very skilled at its presentation of its content. It knows it. It wants you to know it. And so therefore I feel, my perception, based on that, is that the game is 100% responsible for creating a situation in which players, not necessarily all players, but certainly some significant number of players, will not be in the right frame of mind to solve a puzzle. I think it's doing that very deliberately. There's no question for me. It's doing that very deliberately. And its intention in doing that deliberately, I believe, my interpretation of that is that this is very much a game about finding a problem, examining the problem, tumbling the problem until it is not useful to do that anymore, and then sleeping on it, going away, and coming back later with a fresh perspective and a clear head. Certainly not. I mean, when I say like a significant number of people are gonna not be in the right frame of mind to solve a puzzle, I'm not necessarily speaking about this puzzle and my reaction to it. I will. I mean, like my reaction to this, my emotional state at that moment, I think is on an extreme end for players, because I was doing a lot of projecting forward into, if the game is doing this to me now, what is it going to try to pull on me 5 hours from now? Like, I'm already mad about it. Whereas other players who maybe are living more in the moment, even if they have the same kind of sensibility that I do, may not have riled themselves up to such a state at that moment. But I do think that that's a fundamental part of the game, how the game is working, what it's doing, and I think that it is absolutely deliberate about it because it wants you to have to step away from problems. It it creates these puzzles that are designed, not to be solved by logic, by deduction, right? These are not deductive puzzles. They are inductive puzzles. A lot of them. They're I can't think of what book series this was. I kind of want to say it was the Incarnations of Immortality series by Piers Anthony, and that is a weird pull for me to make, and it may be totally wrong, but I remember reading a series of books in which the protagonist describes something that he or she had seen, which was a series of drawings, visual interpretations of the various problem-solving methods. And there were like 5 or 7 of them, and I don't remember what they all were. But deductive was one of them, and deduction is when you can sort of take the things that you know and derive new facts that must be true, based on the things that are already known. Induction is the sort of it's understanding and projecting patterns. It's basically like looking at the facts that you know, understanding the pattern that they form, and then making guesses about the things that you don't know, by assuming that they conform to the same pattern. And one of them was lateral thinking. And I don't remember what the drawing was. I think it was like a broken line or like 2 parallel lines or something like that. But it was meant to to describe a solution to a problem, like a problem-solving technique that is making a creative leap that has no sort of rational basis. It has a creative basis, right? It's coming up with a solution to the problem that is so out of left field, that there's no sensible way that you would come up with it. And that's what this game is at least partially about. It's about sort of, this is sort of related to the stuff that I was the polynomial time solutions stuff that I really kind of butchered, and maybe on a day where I've slept more, I will come back to that, and try to describe that a little bit better for you all. But it's about sort of these puzzles. They all have a logic to them. They have an internal logic. That's not what I mean by they're not about using logic. But the things that you are given, in order to solve a puzzle, is not enough to deduce the solution. You have to sort of like take some creative leaps. And when you take the correct creative leaps, it becomes like abundantly clear that that was correct. Because your ability to recognize, to verify a solution is so much better. It's so much easier to confirm that a solution is correct than it is to come up with that solution. And there's, there's something very magical about that. That is a cool feeling, a cool moment, and I think that's what this game is all about. It's something that is particularly difficult to it's particularly difficult to do, frankly. It's particularly difficult to look at a problem and say, all right, I'm going to come up with a solution to this problem that is a solution nobody would expect. Like, how do you do that? How do you do that? It's not impossible, certainly, but it's hard. It's really, really hard to come up with answers that are truly unexpected answers, and then to cycle through them until you find one that's right. Okay, I see. Does it feel any different when a puzzle is blocked off due to a tangible reason, such as a piece missing, rather than the player just not knowing how to do it yet? It feels different when a puzzle is blocked off for a discernible reason, regardless of whether that is physical or informational. So, for example, like there was, I came out of the garden area. Yeah, I came out of the garden area, and the first puzzle that I found had like a bunch of dots and a bunch of stones, and I had never seen either of those things before. And I tried to trace some lines on it, and it didn't work, and I didn't know why. But it was clear that there were elements on that board that I didn't know what they were. It was clear that I didn't know what they were, right? There was a known unknown. I looked at that and I said, that right there, those stones, I don't know what those are. That's going to screw me up. That feels different from the unknown unknown. When I'm given a puzzle and I look at the puzzle and say, yeah, this looks solvable, and then my solution does not work. Or I look at a puzzle and I say, there is no way to solve this. And in both of those cases, I know what's happening. I know that like there is something somewhere that I don't know yet. But I don't know what that is. I don't even know what kind of a thing it is. I have no idea what to look for. With the stones, I could say like, well, I clearly don't have the tools that I need to solve this puzzle right now. And they were not physical tools. They were just informational tools, but I didn't have them. So let me go away and look for these stones. Where can I find more about these stones? Or the dots? Where can I learn more about these dots? I go to this puzzle and what is my next step? Like, there's something here that I don't know. Is there somewhere that I can go to learn more about apples? Is there somewhere that I can go to learn more about binary trees? What is it that I need to learn more about in order to solve this puzzle? Similarly, if the solution to the puzzle was I don't have the drawing of a tree with an X over the branch that is the correct branch, and I gotta like explore the island and find that drawing. Similarly, like I I don't know what it is that I don't have. I don't even know that I don't have it, right? So that to me is the difference. If you're saying, is there a difference between whether it's a tangible reason or not? Not a meaningful one to me. Um, if you have a like, there's a physical lock over this puzzle, versus there is a thing depicted on this puzzle that you have not seen before. Both of those feel like very similar kinds of locking mechanisms, blocking mechanisms, right? Even though actually from a like replayability standpoint, one of them is very different from the other. But for me, playing for the first time, it's very very similar. And then on the other side of it, if I don't know what it is that I'm missing, it doesn't matter whether it's a physical thing or a informational thing. I don't know what it is. Like that feels the same regardless. Mark Rosewater talks about your players will always do the same thing the game compels them to do, even if it's not a fun thing. So make sure that the thing is fun. That's good. There are a couple of different ways to sort of conceptualize and describe this, and this is a pretty good one. You can also think about it in terms of what is the most efficient way to play the game. That should also be the most fun way to play the game, because players will seek that efficiency and they will do the thing that is easiest, or the thing that is fastest, even if that thing diminishes their enjoyment of it. I think there are some other ways to sort of conceptualize this, but it's all the same idea. Do you feel like the witness is compelling you to do unfun things? Yeah. Do I feel like the witness is compelling me to do unfun things? Yeah, I feel like, it's interesting. Like the witness uses frustration. Uh, this is yeah, okay. This is so I feel like the witness uses frustration um as an instrument. It uses it sort of deliberately and and in like for purpose. Like it uses it to push the player. And one of the things that it pushes the player to do is to um, not keep playing the game the same way over and over and over again. To take breaks, to at least go and try a different puzzle. I'm trying to decide if that's fun or not. It's kind of, maybe it's sort of neutral. What is the game compelling me to do? I mean, so here's the bottom line. No, actually, that's actually really interesting. Here's what I was going to say, and it's not true. I was going to say that the game is compelling me to seek to look at a wiki, to like look for answers outside of the context of the game. And it's really not true, and that's actually interesting to me. we talked about grappling with some of these same problems in Kingdom, and my response to Kingdom was very different. My response to Kingdom was, okay, let me just look this up so that I will know it and can get on with the rest of the game. And that's absolutely not my reaction to The Witness. I mean, if it were, and I think this is part of the point, is that if it were, then there would be kind of nothing left. Like, a lot of these puzzles, if I knew how to solve them, become a lot less interesting, and there's not really, the world is not presenting me with an idea that, like, there's something beyond the next hill that I'm chasing. That if I could just solve these puzzles, I would get something for it. The puzzles are presented as an end to themselves. So really, I'm either going to like stay and solve the puzzles, or I'm going to give up on the puzzles. And if I give up on the puzzles, then I could convince myself that like maybe the puzzles that are later on will be better somehow, will be easier or more interesting, or I'll just get them. And then I might like try to get past gating puzzles to get to those. But I think really, like, for me, I'm either going to like peck at this game very, very slowly over a long period of time, or I'm gonna put it down forever. Like that's those are sort of my two options for interacting with it, and it's probably gonna be one for a while and then the other. What was the question? Oh, is it compelling? What is it compelling me to do, and are the things that it's compelling me to do unfun? I mean, it's really compelling me to like seek solutions to these puzzles, and the solutions are so. I mean, I'm making a lot of assumptions and generalities based on the fact that I can sort of see which direction the ship is pointed, and I have experience with one puzzle that is that appears to have this kind of creative jump solution to it. But like, allow me to make these assumptions. I don't know that The Witness is compelling me to do specific things. It's compelling me to like rack my brain. It's compelling me to try to think outside the box. And thinking outside the box is exhausting. It is not always fun, but it can be fun. And so I don't know that the things that the game is compelling me to do aren't fun. I think that the sort of overarching structure and themes and goals and incentives of the game are subjectively unfun. But I think that's actually a slightly different thing. All right, let's. Does Jonathan Blow? I mean, I don't know Jonathan Blow. I've never met him. I cannot speak to his personality. I can only speak to his persona. I can only speak to the way that he presents himself and he's presented by others. He's portrayed. And I mean, I think that his portrayal is of a brilliant misanthrope, of somebody who is really genuinely uh, of a higher echelon of intelligence and skill and dedication. I mean, he has created some things that are breathtaking, like really, really worthy of uh, I don't know. I've lost all of my words tonight, but reverence, worthy of reverence. Um, he does not seem like somebody that I would likely be friends with. And I feel like both of those ideas, whether they're true, whether they have any relationship to the truth or not, are reflected in his work. His work, to me, speaks of an absolutely luminous intelligence and design sensibility. And because design sensibility, an understanding of human psychology and an empathy. I mean, you can't design games without empathy. But also an attitude that is aggressive towards other people. And again, like, I don't know him. I don't know that that's him. I don't know that you sit down in a restaurant with him and like that's how he behaves. But that is sort of the mask that he wears, whether he chose it or not, and the way that he comes across in the games that he makes. And I don't know that any of that makes him a bad person. You know, we're all complicated. We all have things about us that are hard to make it hard to connect to other people. His games are difficult for me because they are so compelling and so frustrating. How do you think the game handled the balance of puzzle difficulty? Do you think they were too difficult, too easy? Sorry. I don't know how to address this question. I loved the first like hour and a half that I played. I thought was great. Had a beautiful progression. Had a beautiful difficulty curve. And then it changes how those puzzles work dramatically. And I honestly don't have a good enough sense of what the remainder of the game is like to like understand what happens to the difficulty curve at that point. It's also, I mean, it is, this game is way too difficult if it is meant to be like an accessible romp through a beautiful world. But it is not meant to be that. It is meant to be a grueling mental exercise, a grueling challenge to people who feel that they are up to it. And can it be too difficult? Is Dark Souls too difficult? Like, what does that question even mean? It that is what it is. It sort of couldn't possibly be. I think that there's maybe like a false assumption at the heart of this question. But for me, for like the experience that I want to have with a game, for this to be a game that I am like likely to curl up with on a winter morning, yeah, this is way too difficult. I don't want that. I play my games on easy. This does not have that mode. Do you think game designers have a responsibility to prioritize fun overall? Absolutely not. Categorically, no. I think that game designers must recognize the role that fun plays in most games, in mainstream games, in entertainment products, and recognize that if they do not wish to engage with fun, then they either need to replace it with something that will fill that role, or design around the lack of it. And it's not enough to create a game that isn't fun and say, well, that was the point. It wasn't supposed to be fun. You have to create a game, and there's different like words that people will say. I've heard people say like, your game doesn't have to be fun, but it has to be compelling. It doesn't have to be fun, but it has to be engaging. I think that it doesn't have to be fun, but if you want people to play it, then it does have to make them want to play it. And fun is maybe the easiest way to do that. Certainly is, a widely accepted and commonly practiced way to do that. It's certainly not the only way to do that, but your game does need to do that one way or another, or don't be surprised when nobody plays it. Okay, I got a question about the Witness. Piss jar, real piss or not? I saw that. I missed that. Here is an unknown. Chat at one point referenced the fact that they were talking about a piss jar, but I missed the part where they actually talked about it, so I don't know what that means. I'm going to go with real piss. It's a gut feeling. Is life a puzzle box? Life is not a designed construct. There are elements within life that are designed constructs that certainly share have are puzzle box like. There are puzzle boxes in life, but I think part of the fundamental property of a puzzle box is that it has a externally constructed meaning, and life has a subjectively constructed meaning. You can win a puzzle box. Like there's a solution to it. And you can win life, but it's not objective. It's not by finding the solution. It's more complicated than that. There's certainly a relationship, though. I mean, a puzzle box is a black box, and life, in many ways, is also a black box. I just think that they're different types of black boxes. Black box, of course, meaning any kind of a mechanism that where the operation of it is obscured. Why did I bring up Puzzle Box? So I saw this fly by. So The Witness is not necessarily a puzzle box, but I think that I brought it up because this has been a theme. This sense of games in which the sort of the foundational understanding of the game is not presented, where a major part or the major part of the game is attempting to figure out what the game actually is. And that, to me, is very related to a puzzle box. A puzzle box is a disguised system where you know what your end goal is, and you know that there is a way to get to your end goal, and you know the basic mechanisms with which you can interact with the box, but you don't know what the solution is. You don't know why the solution would be what it is. There's no way for you to differentiate between you can make, so at any given moment when you are working on a puzzle box, you can make a move and not know whether that move brings you closer to your goal or not. I mean, there's actually, like, we're talking about elegance. Like, let me just dig a level deeper and say that there's a deep relationship between the sort of ideas around mazes that we talked about, around branching paths and trying at any given moment to choose the right path, the path that's going to lead you to a destination, and not to take the path that is going to lead you away from the destination, even though in that moment it can be very difficult to discern which is which. And based on the design of the maze, it may be deliberately trying to obscure that information from you. That is what The Witness is. The Witness uses that as a metaphor for its base layer of abstract puzzle, but also that is what it is at a larger scale. It's a game where it is giving you maybe The Witness isn't this. Kingdom is this. And the feeling of playing The Witness is similar. Like, it's definitely related. But Kingdom, there's a thing in Kingdom where, like, I can give a person a gold coin, and because I don't understand what that's going to do, and I don't understand when the guy takes the gold coin and, like, goes and performs an action, what context that has. So, for example, here's a good one. Because there were some people who complained that, like, I say complained, who pointed out that I would complain that Kingdom did not do enough to explain to me how things worked. And then I would throw money around at people and immediately leave, so that I didn't see what they did with that money. And like, that's a really interesting point, and it's true. And there are a couple of reasons for that. And one of them has to do with like the way that the game is set up, that there's a lot of space to cover, and it feels like you should always be somewhere where you're not, that you're trying to manage a large area. And so if I stand still, then I feel like I'm neglecting things that are in other parts. And for me, the idea of experimenting with a game at the expense of playing it is anathema. Like, I would rather pretend that I am a terrible king, and watch my kingdom descend into ruin, while I am like riding my horse around yelling at peasants, than stop pretending to be a king, and sort of sit and experiment in a methodical way, because a king wouldn't do that. That's not how I don't want to stop role playing in order to uh, uh, like try to figure out the systems. But another thing is that, like, often it would not be helpful, and it was clear to me that it was not always helpful. So in Kingdom, you've got this sort of moment. You've got this thing. There's this boat, right? There's this like half a boat that's not quite built, and you can go and you can spend a ton of money on it. And you spend a ton of money on it, and like builders come over and they repair the skeleton of the boat. And then you spend more money on it, and builders come over and they like gradually construct the boat. And so I can clearly see in the sort of instant what is happening. I spend money over here, and this boat becomes a little bit more constructed. But is that a good thing? Like, what is that like when the boat is? Can I fully construct the boat? And if I do, then what happens? Like, is it gonna take a bunch of my villagers and sail away, and I'm never gonna see them again? Is it gonna like stick a cannon out and start shooting at the enemies? And if so, like, are they the enemies that I'm trying to fight, or is it gonna like sail somewhere else that is theoretically useful but not actually practically useful? I don't know. I have no idea what that boat is for. And there is no way that I can know what that boat is for unless I actually construct it. And I can't construct it unless I have to play the whole game in order to construct it. And there are other things that I could also be doing, and it's difficult to manage them all. And ultimately, yes, it turns out that like the entire point of the game is to build the boat. And once you build the boat, you're done, basically. Like, that's the end. And if you don't build the boat, then the game just keeps getting harder and harder and harder until you inevitably die. So actually build the boat, and build the boat as fast as you can. But there's no way to know that that is what you were supposed to do until you've done it, right? When I get to that moment of like, I've got a gold coin, I could spend it on this boat, should I? Like, what are the consequences of doing that or not doing that? That's an arbitrary choice. There's absolutely nothing by which I can make an informed decision there. In fact, I'm going to look at that decision and I'm going to say, I could spend this coin on things that I know will give me at least some amount of temporary help. Or I could spend it on this boat, which in the short term does not help me at all. Which of those things am I going to do? I'm going to take the path that appears to lead in the direction of my destination. And it's going to turn out that nope, actually that was a dead end. That was misleading. It was a bluff. The path that you should have taken is the one that goes in the opposite direction and then wanders back around. Okay, so I just basically said that nothing is a puzzle box. Kingdom is a maze. We still don't know what the witness is, except, I mean, the witness is not a puzzle box. I mean, here's the real answer. The Witness is that book of nonlinear thinking puzzles that I had in middle school. That's what it's called, right? Nonlinear thinking puzzles? Yeah, I think nonlinear. That was, a lot of sort of riddles of the form, a man is dead in a locked room, the window is broken, and the floor is wet. How did he die? And yeah, like, you can solve that. Like, it has a solution. And we all, like that one, we all know what the solution is. I think, like, I have heard it so many times, I assume that everybody has heard it. The solution, by the way, is that somebody threw or an icicle was unintentionally thrown in some manner through a window and either concussed the man or stabbed him fatally and then melted and caused the floor to be wet. And that's like enough in the zeitgeist that we all sort of know the answer to that. But if you examine that puzzle with a little bit of distance, like, there is a solution to it, but there's nothing in the puzzle that gets you to the solution. You have to come at it backwards. You have to figure out the solution and then determine that it fits all of the clues that you have in the puzzle. And that's the whole point of the book, right? Nonlinear thinking puzzles, non-deductive puzzles, non-deductive riddles. That's what The Witness is, from what I can tell. Again, making all sorts of assumptions about this game that I've played a very small slice of. And that's fine. Like, I had that book. I read that book. That was cool. I don't know how many of those puzzles I, like, solved. I enjoyed recognizing the solutions to them. That was the part that I liked. The actually, like, stewing over them for days or weeks, I don't know that, like, I ever would have done that. And I don't know, the extent that I'd be willing to do it for The Witness either. But I recognize that, like, it's a thing. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's my take on reducing all kinds of games to interactive objects. Okay, I can't do anymore. There's a bunch more cool questions, which I will read and maybe get to later or incorporate into something. I don't know. Thank you guys for being so engaged. I really appreciate it. I love getting these questions, and I love the fact that I got so many of them. But I've been talking for way too long. And let me just acknowledge very quickly from the chat that the sort of statement that I am confirming that I am placing a lot of prejudices on I'm making a lot of assumptions about what The Witness ultimately is, and what it looks like from this point forward, based on assumptions that I'm making about Jonathan Blow. And that is super fair. Like I said, it's very true that I have only played a little bit of this game, and I have just barely touched on the part that I am assuming now is representative of the rest of the game, and actually even like not representative, but representative of a direction that the game is going. I mean, I am making a lot of assumptions, and a lot of the things that I have said tonight, of which Jesus Christ there have been a lot, might just be nonsense if depending on which of those assumptions are false. So thank you for pointing that out. That is absolutely true. It would behoove me to play more of this game, and so I'm sure that I will. I'm going to save it for a little while in case it makes sense to continue playing it on stream. And then if it doesn't, then I'll tinker around with it for a little while myself. Thanks, guys. This was fun. I love doing this. I hope that you will come and hang out tomorrow at after class. I hope that you will look for the underground show stuff that's going to be happening sometime between 4 and 6 tomorrow, Pacific time. And I would love for you to experience Undertale with me, because you can either commiserate with me or help me understand what it is that I am missing about that game. And then also Gold Rushers. For whatever reason, I could not play a trailer with sound, but let me assure you, the game does have sound. It also has, prospectors, and gold, and man-sized safes, and horses that you can throw, and gambling machines, and dynamite. Yes, dynamite. Lots of dynamite. Lots and lots and lots of dynamite. So, feature rich, I think, is how I describe that game. Okay. Thanks. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you next time. And yeah, The Witness. Okay.